So can you be a data-oriented skeptic and also a spiritually engaged person, Christian, whatever religion you choose? Yeah, kinda. How? Hi, I'm Jeremy. I'm a deep skeptic, also a pastor. So yesterday I proved probably almost 400 comments that alternatively accused me either of going to hell because I was too skeptical, or accused me of not being a skeptic because I had some sort of spiritual beliefs or spiritual engagement, which I get it. For those people who are not both of those things, it can feel like a contradiction, right? Or like hypocrisy or something like that. But there is a path. The path is a little different. All right, so the first thing is sort of on the faith side, and it's the thing that I was taught was not okay as a person who grew up in the more evangelical world, and that is you've got to get comfortable with doubting and questioning. And I don't mean that you have to come up with new doubts and questions. You probably don't need any help with that. But instead, you have to become comfortable with the idea that doubts and questions are an indicator of spiritual health. They are not an indicator that you're not good at believing or not good at spirituality. Instead, they mean that you are engaging deeply in that investigation, in that work. And that is really important because if you can get there, the rest of this is a lot easier. The next one on the faith side of things is to take your data-oriented brain and give it some new tools. That's the key here, because the tools of science or whatever kind of data you're used to collecting are often not the tools that you need to investigate things like ancient spiritual texts, because the data that you get from those tools is meant for another field of study. And so in the faith world, what you need is to find tools to investigate the world of faith and religion in a way that gives you meaningful and reliable data. And one of the ways to do that is to find reputable sources, like Dan McClellan is one of them, or great books like The History of the Bible by John Barton that gives you an overview of sort of academic consensus for whatever religion or spirituality that you are interested in investigating. Because what you want is people who have the highest level of tools, giving you access to the data that has been proven by people who really know what they're talking about, PhDs, etc. So once you've become comfortable with doubting and asking questions, and then gotten a set of tools to generate the data, then you begin evaluating the beliefs and the practices that you have. And you say, okay, what of these beliefs and practices actually match the data that I've been given? And what of those that match the data that I have been given also feel like they work in my world? Like, which of these are helping me become the best version of myself, to offer love and grace and all of that acceptance to the world around me, and is giving me a purpose greater than myself? And the third thing is sort of on the skepticism side in general, and that is being skeptical of your skepticism, right? Knowing that that all of the data that has ever been produced is constantly being refined, and there's new data that is coming about. And what that means is that you have to hold your skepticism also with an open hand in general, realizing that there are some things and experiences that have not been described, that cannot be fully understood with whatever tools are available. And that oftentimes what that means is that there are other paradigms, there are other fields of study, and religion is one of those. And religion has its own set of tools to investigate reality. And so it doesn't necessarily need to be automatically discounted because it is a different field of study, any more than art or education or psychology should be disputed because it's outside of the field of study of, physics or whatever your area of science and nerdiness is. And then kind of a bonus one, it's really a value underlying all the other three things that I've said, is getting comfortable with something called cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance exists when you have two beliefs, two ideas that seem to contradict each other, and your brain wants to unify those. And that's why sort of the fundamentalist evangelicals will see contradictions in the Bible, and instead of being okay with contradictions, because the Bible is not univocal, it was written by multiple people, to multiple audiences, instead, because they see that dissonance, because their brain has this sense of cognitive dissonance and unease that is created created, they create a narrative or a version that unifies it and makes it one belief. But the problem is that sometimes you will have beliefs, like data that will suggest two different things. And sometimes it's because the data is from these two different fields of study. But when you look at that data, you look at the conclusions that come from it, both of the things seem to be true. and so the idea is that when the data suggests that two things that can't actually both at the same time be true feel true in your life and match your life and help you become the best version of yourself, getting comfortable with cognitive dissonance is getting comfortable with the idea that two things can be true at the same time. And maybe one day you'll be able to unify them because you will get more data that completes the circle for you, or maybe not. But you're going to choose beliefs that work for you. And those beliefs sometimes might contradict each other. And that is okay because you're going to get used to cognitive dissonance and saying, you know what? I've got two sources of data, both are saying different things, and but I think they're both true. And let me be clear, from my own experience as a person who is a deep skeptic and also is engaged in spirituality, it means that I'm never 100% sure if God exists, and there are plenty of times when I'm pretty sure God doesn't exist. And yet I continue in this process because I know that other data shows that spiritual practice and spiritual engagement and beliefs, spiritual beliefs actually do ultimately benefit people when they have navigated that in such a way that it's not traumatizing them. And so I continue to hold all the things with an open hand and continue to incorporate more and new data as it comes in, and be okay with the fact that, like, just because one tiny human like me may one day not believe that God exists, if God does exist, then God's got to be big enough to weather that storm and come out on the other side of it, and that my little moment of doubt and disbelief doesn't challenge the existence of God if God does exist.